Hello, everyone. It is Cheryl Hickerson, CEO of Females in Finance. My pronouns are she, her. And I'm so excited today to be here because we get to talk to somebody that I have a lot of respect for, and that is Lonie, who is a financial coach in upstate New York. So if you were on right before we hit record, you would have heard us all talking about Buffalo and New York and their football team and the cold, and you're all built a little differently up there. I think we can all agree if you're anywhere in the rest of the United States. But Laura works with consumers and other financial advisors on financial coaching. She does hold a CPA, although she doesn't provide any type of tax advice. She doesn't prepare tax returns. I don't think she sells any insurance. I know she doesn't do any investment planning. And today we're going to be hyper focused on financial coaching and what it looks like today. How are you, Laura? How's it going today?
Oh, it's going great. The sun's shining. There's no snow out, so it's a great day.
Well, I brought it. I special ordered that for today for you. So I'm glad that you got the delivery just fine. So I want you to jump into telling us what it is that you do. Specifically, what is financial coaching looking like in 2022 these days?
Okay, financial coaching, I think, is going to be huge in 2022. What financial coaching is the day-to-day management of your finances. So, in other words, your budget, or as I prefer to say, spending plan, and how you handle your money. People do various different types of financial coaching. The type that I do focuses more on your cash flow to make sure that you have enough money for your upcoming bills, that you have clarity. A lot of people come to me and they don't have confidence in themselves. They don't know where their money is going, which is very, very common. And I found that that goes along the spectrum of all different income levels. That actually, I have a client. Well, she's going to be a client shortly, and she just keeps saying, "I'm a mess. I'm a mess," and she's a pretty high level professional. So it's not necessarily who you would think that needs financial coaching. I think it applies to all income levels. And the way I see financial coaching going in 2022 as a whole is that it's going to become more common to have this as a benefit in the workplace, that there's more there's I was going to say no authority. There's financial coaching becomes widely known because so many people are feeling the pinch from the high gas prices, inflation, and they didn't experience it in the past, and they're starting to freak out. And I am lucky enough to have a mentor, Amy Jo Lauber, who's a certified financial planner, and she has a support group that she used to run, and she lets me do some of the posting in there. And I have seen like a rise in the people being upset about the way the economy is going. And the link between financial advisors and financial coaches is that a lot of the work that I do would perhaps not be profitable for a financial advisor. They would be focused on the investments. I have nothing to do with the investments. When I meet with clients, we go over, I send them, first we do a 15-minute call to see if we're a good fit. And then if it turns out we're a good fit, then we do a 2-hour get started session, which I send them in advance, a questionnaire, very detailed, and then a worksheet. And in the worksheet, that's what we go over during our 2-hour meeting. And we talk about their goals and concerns, and just preparing that gives people a chance to find out more about their finances that they really haven't paid attention to for a lot of different reasons.
And what I want to back up to something you said earlier, because I think it's really important. The words matter. I learn that from Mary all the time, Mary Schmidt. Words matter. And a lot of times people say creating a budget. And you said, I like to call it a spending plan. And I really kind of felt that for a second because, and I had to stop in that. I actually wrote it down because I'll tell you why I don't like the word budget, and anybody can tell me whether they agree or not. But I always feel like it's the word diet for eating. It's the word diet for your money. I don't want less of it. I don't want you to tell me I can't have, because as soon as you tell me I can't have the ice cream sandwich in the refrigerator, what do I want all day is the ice cream sandwich in the fridge. So I love the idea of changing it to, it's like an eating plan. It's now a spending plan. It's just a plan on how to spend your money. And I think that that's really critical because where we're at today, and you and I've talked many times privately, but when I'm out looking and surveying at financial services today, I made a comment to Adam Holt at Asset Map, who's my business mentor as well. He's somebody I really respect. And that was, we're over here so much bickering between financial planning and insurance back and forth. The financial coaches, and I made this joke to you, like they're just rolling by us in the Trojan horse going, you guys just we're going to keep going forward here. And it's kind of funny, but at the same time, it's because of simple changes in calling it a spending plan versus a budget that I think is really critical to what makes financial coaching so attractive and so successful today. I think that that's really an important way that you delineated there, the way people spend their money. One question I have for you specific to that, how apprehensive are people to tell you the truth about their spending habits?
Actually, it's amazing. They're not really apprehensive. Once they find out that my husband and I got married very young, and we had our son, and we made a lot of financial mistakes. And I'm very upfront about that. And I think that puts people at ease. They know that they're not going to be going to somebody who's, I'm not going to be Dave Ramsey and I'm going to yell at you and say, what were you thinking? How could you do something like that? That's not at all how I operate. I offer encouragement, and it does take some time for people um, to feel comfortable, but I think that I have a way of putting them at ease very easily by saying my own journey, and that makes them feel a lot better. And I personally like to, once we started working together, to emphasize their strengths. So to turn their financial stress into financial strength. And
Beautiful.
what really has amazed me is when I send emails after a session, the responses that I have got have been incredible. For example, one person, she went back to work in her 70s and was making over $100,000 because she was a professional, but she said, I barely recognize myself. I know everything you wrote is true because I have a very good way of listening to people and writing back to that and turning that around into a positive. Another woman doesn't have a lot of money, and she put her son through medical school. And so I said, well, I reframed it to that was the choice you made. And look at it's paying dividends. He's a psychiatrist now. You paid for his education. How many people can say that? Because at that point in life, it's too late to make any changes. So you might as well reframe it and do as much as you possibly can at wherever you are in life to move forward.
Another good word, reframing it. See, that's the kind of stuff I like, that I hear that. And I think that it does make a difference in how we talk about it. Because to your point, I don't want to be shamed about money. And I was for a long time. Women are shamed a lot about money. Sorry for the gentlemen who are here, but we do. Like if we buy something, oh, she's spending. Oh, if we save too much, then it's like, oh, she doesn't know how to buy anything. It's like, man, you're darned if you do and you're darned if you don't. And so I love the fact that, you talked about using that through a reframe, and I'm getting to the age where changing the course of things is a little rougher. I hate to say it, but it's true. I can qualify this, everybody. I got 10 grandkids. I got 5 kids. I mean, I'm a little seasoned. I'm a little vintage is what I like to tell people. I'm a little vintage now. So if that's the case, one of the questions I'd like for you to talk about too, if you don't mind, is what does that looking like working with a client look like today? Because I know you talked already about you have a questionnaire and it's comprehensive. They fill it out. But what is it that you're looking for as a financial coach, as they fill out that data and give that trust to you to go, okay, I'm going to expose my belly to you, Laura, and then you look at it and go, I got you. So what's that process today look like?
Well, it depends. It's actually amazing the amount of college-educated people that don't understand how to fill the form out correctly. So it ends up being the first meeting ends up being a true educational experience where I explain exactly what it means, your other sources of income. Okay, if you have made a loan to somebody, or you're getting money that you inherited, a lot of people, they don't even know how long they're going to be receiving monthly checks for. So this is something that they really need to know before they can move forward and make any plan. And also looking at, okay, is their debt huge? Are they spending more than they're bringing in? But a lot of times there's a true lack of understanding of even how to compute your yearly expenses into a monthly expense. And that's where a lot of us, and I used to do this myself, run into trouble. For example, if you celebrate Christmas, it comes every year, yet it always seems to be a surprise for so many of us. And so people end up putting it on the credit card, and then January rolls around, and there's the bill that they can't pay because they didn't plan for it. So it's a lot of education. And so then usually we will go on past the first session if we're a good fit together. And it's during that time that we work on the budgeting to, I believe in automation if you have enough money to cover the bills, which isn't always the case, but it usually is. And like a lot of people are paying late fees unnecessarily. It's not that they don't have the money, they just never took the time. A lot of people are very busy. Everybody's very busy. And so by setting things up, then we can see stuff like, okay, perhaps it'd be easier and a lot cheaper to pay your car insurance once a year rather than monthly. And I'm a firm believer that it's all individual. What works for one person is not going to work for another. It's the same thing as dieting. Some diet, first off, one, you have to be ready to diet. Just like you have to be ready for financial coaching, you have to be committed to making the changes. And then the other thing is what incentivizes one person isn't going to incentivize another. And I loved how you brought up the point of budgeting being, a lot of people hear budget and they're like, oh, forget it. I don't want any part of it. It's restrictive. I grew up being told up what to do with my money. I'm going to do whatever I want with my money. And actually, it's quite the opposite. You're deciding where you're going to put your money. You're making an investment in yourself. And with financial coaching, what you're going to walk away with, not just one session, but if you do, like, say, a 3 month package, you're going to walk away with new habits that are going to serve you for the rest of your life that will more than pay for themselves. And as far as working with financial advisors, they refer clients, and also a client that I refer to a financial advisor is going to be more prepared. They're going to know what their cash flow is. They're going
That's
to
a good
know
point.
what their net worth is. So it's a mix of things that we do depending on the client's need.
You have a request, a raised hand right now to ask a question. So Michael, go for it.
All right, awesome. Yeah, you said you work with financial advisors. So do you find that it's a huge benefit to financial advisors? And I'm assuming they would have a lot more money to be able to invest in things like that too after working with you, right?
Yes, I think that that's a huge benefit. And it's also, like I said, sometimes financial advisors, it's not worth them taking. I don't want to say it isn't worth them, but they don't have the time or resources necessarily to spend the amount of time getting down to the level, the nitty gritty of the day-to-day budget like I would.
No, that's awesome. Thank you.
You're welcome.
I think that one of the things that I love about financial coaching is the roadmap you kind of get, because I'm going to give you a behavioral thing and I'll admit to it. So if anybody else wants to chime in, they can, if this sounds familiar. When I was a kid and I had to earn money because I was not given anything, like if I even wanted if I wanted the yearbook at school, my father's like, well, you better work for it. I'm thinking, I'm 10, dude. What are you talking about? I got to work for it, but here I am mowing lawns to get a yearbook that probably sits in a box in my basement, if we're perfectly honest. But one of the things that I did is I worked really hard and I did make money. The very first thing that my dad did, though, was, and I think he set me up, my father set me up to understand that money is broken out through pieces. Like you're given $10, but wait a second, 10% of that, if you tithe, if people are tithing, or 25% of it needs to go into savings. But what I learned later on, although that was great, and he taught me how to delineate and bucket my money and things like that, it wasn't until I met a woman in San Francisco who was a CFP. And she sat me down one day because she had overheard me say something. I didn't have enough money for something. Very easy in San Francisco to not have money for something. Let's just be very transparent here. She said to me, are you paying yourself first? I'll never forget those words. And I remember exactly where I was sitting. And I don't know why that idea clicked so much. And I looked at her and I said, well, I got to pay my bills, which is a natural. She goes, no, you always pay yourself first. You pay yourself first, then everything else is after that. That was my first like budgeting 101 dialogue. And I went home and all of a sudden the wheels start turning. How do I pay myself first? How do I make that happen? And it was through coaching, which she had a junior planner at the time, because they didn't really use the term financial coaching. Karin, who sat down with me and said, because I came back, it was about 3 or 4 days, I needed to noodle in it. And I said, teach me how to pay myself first. I don't know what that means. So I'm about, looking back in that time frame, I'm about 27 years old at that point, just to give you a reference. I'm 51 today. And 27 years old, it got my wheels turning about how do I pay myself first. And that honestly changed the trajectory of my relationship with money, because of that one financial question of understanding how a spending plan works. That's why I think the work that you do, Laura, is so, so incredible. And I think all of them who are financial coaches and therapists and consultants and wellness advocates and all the different names we have now today are so important, because that changed the trajectory of my financial life forever as an everyday person, just an ordinary person you see at the grocery store. Because now I started paying myself first, and then I didn't buy things that didn't fit into my spending plan. Isn't that some crazy stuff, right? You think that's it's so simple, but it's really just because the behavior was my dad set up, that I was paying my bills first, I was paying everybody else first before I got to my money. And it was just a simple A or B, like that optometrist thing, right? So when you work with individuals, what are some of the main things that they're trying to accomplish, whether it's getting out of debt, paying for a vacation? What are some of the things that you're encountering in this coaching process?
Paying off debt is a big one, and another one is starting to get on track with just finding out where their money goes. How could I be making this much money and be broke? It doesn't seem possible. And a lot of it is just, I don't want to say mindless spending, because that has such a negative connotation, but it is like people are spending and they just don't know where their money's going. That is absolutely huge. And then the other one would be, wow, I'm going to be retiring in 10 years and, I haven't set much aside at all.
When you said mindless spending, all I ever think of is Dora the Explorer. Swiper, swiper is for people to swipe their card. Every time I see that, it's the first thing because I remember somebody saying it to me one time. So next time you go to the store, you see somebody swipe that thing, swiper, swiper, because that's exactly, I'm like, you're just spending, you're just, you don't even, it's not even real, because we don't actually touch money anymore. In fact, I don't even know if I want to, because it looks so gross. If we're being perfectly frank, I'm like, I don't know about that. And, but you do get into the habit of just swiper. And one of the things I think you and I talked about in our first call, talk, and I know Deanna O'Neill wants to come here and talk too for a second. And that was one of the things that I put into place in the house was Amazon was arriving at the house a little far too often. I'm seeing some laughter, some faces. Like, I sure like the smiley face on that box at Christmas every day. No, it was coming out of the account. But so one of the things we put in place was, because my husband and I share an Amazon account, and I said to him, hey, I think that if we want something, we should not be allowed to purchase it and it be here in a day or 2 days. And I said, so let's put it into the basket and then we'll review it on Friday night together to see how that looks. And you know what? At first he was like, all right, because he thought he was going to tell me about how I couldn't buy a piece of makeup or whatever it was. All of a sudden I was like, you really need that comic book? You really need that? And he's like, man, it works both ways. And all of a sudden what was in our basket at the end of the week drastically reduced, because then at one point we would have stuff in there and going, I don't even know what that was for. I saw it on TikTok and thought that looked cool. And then I'm like, nope, not going to buy it until Friday. And we did have to put a caveat into it, because I started figuring out that I would put things, because, we're lazy brains. We are. I started putting things in there Thursday night, because then I could just buy it Friday morning. And Daryl started looking, he's like, no, you can't do that. So I laughed, but it was true. And we started looking at our spending plan, and it wasn't part of our spending plan. And that's exactly what it was. So I'm going to add Deanna here, because I know she's got a question and I want her to have some time to talk with you.
Thank you so much, Cheryl. And Laura, this is fantastic. So I'm in a similar thing. I do a lot of coaching, but something you said, Cheryl, about the pay yourself first really struck a chord, because as financial counselors, financial coaches, we tell individuals that all the time. That's a huge part of financial planning, is pay yourself first. I primarily work with small business owners, and that is absolutely not on their mind. And I'm trying to teach them the same concept. If your business is going to function, you have to pay yourself first, because small business owners tend to pay themselves last at everything. They make nothing. They're like, I got to pay the bills. I got to pay my employees. I got to do all that. And if they're not paying themselves first, then they are not valuing themselves. And it's the same concept, but it's just so hard to grasp. And I'm not sure why our society doesn't understand that. Like, we don't value ourselves. We don't value putting money aside for even just a rainy day, let alone retirement. And so it's really interesting. And so that really, really struck a chord. I mean, everything you've said, I preach it all the time. I talk about, budgets and diets. I talk about, they're synonymous, and the word counseling is awful, because I'm an accredited financial counselor. And people are like, oh, counseling. And I'm like, no, it just means I want to talk about it.
But you know what you just said, when I first started my business, do you know that I did not, I mean, I always figure, I'm not going to lie, I did not pay myself a single penny for 2.5 years. I just worked another job and I ran my business.
Because you felt like the business took everything?
Yeah, well, because I kept reinvesting it back into the business. And where it hurt me is like, well, it hurts you in different ways. Like, for one, once I did pay myself, although we never took any PPP money, we could have, at least, had I not changed just the year before that into actually taking a paycheck for myself, which we set up and started doing things like that, then all of a sudden it made the work that I did have more value to it as well, because you start feeling very like, I'm working for, you're thinking you're doing nothing. And it was because of a coach who said to me, hey, you need to be paying yourself. And I know the men, probably this won't resonate as deeply with them as it does the women. We're almost always the last to do anything for ourselves. And if you think that's not true, I want you to all pay attention to this. If you live with a significant other that happens to be a female, whose dinner plates get set down last at the dinner table? Pay attention. I bet it's the woman's. She will put in front of her kids, in front of her spouse, in front of her parent, anybody else, and then bring her plate to the table. And my husband became extremely cognizant of that. And so now he'll always go over and grab the plate and say, and put my plate down first. He's like, you first. it's a behavior change, right? And I don't know, Laura, are you seeing, thank you for that, Dean. I appreciate so much.
Yes, thank you.
Are you seeing a difference behaviorally between, men and women when you're working with money? Do things like that come up where, oh no, not me, or oh, I don't want to do that? And I feel like with the men, it's a little different sometimes with money.
Oh, I agree totally. I work primarily with females, but yes, I agree with you. And the same thing is if you watch a holiday meal, the way people will approach the food, it's totally different usually in general between male and females. But Cheryl, I have a question for you. How did you feel when you started seeing your bank account when you were 27? All of a sudden, that bank account grow.
Yeah, I would say that the first thing that I had definitely a rush, because all of a sudden I'm like, oh my gosh, I have money. And it was really nice to have a nest egg for like the first time. So everybody understands, I have 3 children of my own. I fostered and adopted 2 children. So all of a sudden I went to 5 kids, and these kids were drinking like 8 gallons of milk a week, friends. Okay. This is not like, I would go into Safeway and they would look at me and I'm like, just don't ask. I got a lot of kids. Okay. It was really hard. But once the first time we put ourselves on the spending plan where I had a budget for, and I did use envelope system back then. So the envelope, I actually put card, real cash in it, cold hard cash in it. And that's what I went to the grocery store with. All of a sudden I was like, wait a second, because the kids were just throwing stuff in the cart. And I was like, hold on a second. We can't do that because I only have X amount of money to spend. They also started realizing, well, wait a second. Bank of Mom is a little empty this week. Maybe I don't need Cocoa Puffs. Maybe I can just have, oatmeal or whatever. And so they started, and now it's funny to watch my children who have children now. My son, who's 33, bought his first home by the time he was 25. And his wife stayed home, and they have 3 children. And she's just gone back to work because she goes, because I have 3 kids. I should explain why I went back to work. But they would learn the power of that and paying themselves first. They go on vacation every year. So my son learned very quickly, like watching me. Very interesting. You put me on the spot. I kind of like that. I never get
Well,
asked
I
those
just,
questions.
because I think when people, once they, whether it's a business owner or, somebody 27 years old, mom, it's once you get into that savings habit, it becomes very powerful.
Oh, it's
But when you
euphoric.
say pay yourself first, I think, and I used to think the same thing. Well, yeah, sure, I would pay myself first if I had enough money. So when you're working with a financial coach, you could see where you can get that money to pay
Yeah.
yourself first. And for businesses, Profit First is a great book to read, but I think it's in perception. And I know some people that deliberately will not budget because or create spending plans because their parents were on them all the time to do it, even as adults. And one person I know told me that her parents fought so much about money that she was in her late 60s when she told me this, that to this day she can't handle anything with money. She used to hide in the closet when they would fight about money. So money has so much emotion attached to it. And if somebody chooses to work with a financial coach, then you can, talk about their experiences when they were younger and how they got to where they are. And getting back to financial advisors, if a financial advisor refers a client to me, I would refer that client back to the financial advisor. I see us more as collaborators and with the same mission and the same goals to help people live their best financial life, whatever it means for that particular person.
Yeah. I want to ask, does anybody have any questions? Because I know we're coming right up on the time, and I want to be certain I answer any questions of anyone here watching live. But this has just been, to me, for, it's been reaffirming and validating because, to your point, it is euphoric whenever you see your account go up. You definitely have an opportunity to do things you couldn't do before because you didn't have that mindset to save the money or to pay yourself first, or to do the things that just to get to the end goal of what you want to accomplish through that. And I could never have done that without a financial coach. I am very adamant that my life would be very different today. And now, I recognize when I see friends that are spending above their means. And it's so hard to not say something too. I just have got to tell you, like, you got to like back away from the crazy. But like, I come back and I think, don't buy that new car. You don't need a new car, but I saw Amy Jo, she came off of, I'd love to have her here with you because I know you think the world of her. You mentioned her already on here. Hi, Amy.
Hi, nice to meet you.
You as well.
Wonderful conversation. I would just have a question. Laura, what has surprised you the most as you work with people? Like, did you have any expectations of this work? And were you surprised by anyone's reaction, or like what kind of struck you as you've walked this path as a coach?
How people react differently. Some people are so hard on themselves.
Oh, yeah.
It's unbelievable. I've been an idiot or whatever. And then the other part of it is not understanding some basics, like thinking that the PayPal credit extended to them, not realizing they were paying interest. That part is really surprising to me. Or like I said, having like a loan, accounts receivable, that you made a loan to somebody and not having hardly any paperwork on it. And so it's very hard not to like say, oh, wow, to remain very calm and non-judgmental, because I personally cannot stand, like I said, when I hear somebody yelling at, a TV personality yelling, what were you thinking? You're crazy, you're stupid, it's a stupid tax. That part I really, I don't like that at all. And I think you've been a great role model for that. Thank you. I don't like it either, but I'm sure they do it for ratings.
Yeah, I was going to say it gets them on you remembered that they did it. And that is I'm the same way. I'll see somebody tout something and I think, hold up a second. You don't know these people's lives. What are you talking about? And it's like I said, it's so hard sometimes. And when you know things, here's really an interesting part with Amy Jo and Laura, all of us. When you work in financial services and you know things, you feel that due diligence, like I call it the invisible cloak of due diligence, like we're the Harry Potters of the world, and putting that on, and you want to share it because you feel like there's an obligation, like an ethical call to do it. And you got to keep your mouth quiet until they ask you.
Yeah.
Yeah. My family has just kind of forbidden me to talk about money.
Oh my gosh, that's so funny. Well, my son, he's gotten to the point now where he used to be like, these are dumb conversations. Now he's got a house and cars. Now he calls me. He's like, should I be refinancing this? I'm like, hold up. Are you calling to talk to me to rant? Or are you calling me for solutions? Because I need to know which hat I'm putting on, because I don't want to get like mom's telling me what to do thing. And he's like, I'm calling you for solutions. I'm like, okay, then is what I'm going to tell you to do. Otherwise, they'd call and ask a question and I would spout off something like, I don't need your advice. I could do this by myself. And you're like, so now I do make clarifications there, but I just think this has been a wonderful dialogue. It just reminds you the importance of, and I have to tell you too, I'm going to put this on gallery so everybody's here together for a second. I believe that, money conversations are never going to end, period. And if that's the case, and we have to remember that behaviorally, we've all been taught how to work with money differently. And there's A to Z has 24 different variables involved to get there, right? So if that's the case, we can still get to the end result. But I do think that we get there a lot more efficiently with financial help than without. And so we really need to make this dialogue more prevalent about how to get to everyday people with their money. if you have ideas and you want to share them with us on how you're going out and into the community to work with people that other people could be like, hey, that's a good idea. We always love hearing those of Females in Finance because there's 3,293 members who we're all learning from one another and crowdsourcing that. But, I also feel as if that money isn't just, although we talked a lot about female-centric money here, just human-centric money. So whether it's men and women, business owners, families, we're talking about, I posted something yesterday that I think is still very, very true to this day. And that is tradition is peer pressure from dead people. We have a lot of people that are, I'm doing money the way my dad did money, who grew up during the Depression. Okay. A little different there, to his dad who did money, who never came home because he would get on and work at the train line. And they would see him like every 2 or 3 or 4 years. And you knew it because they had a kid every single year after that. 8 kids later that were exactly 2 years apart from when grandpa would come home from the train line. So if that, you have to undo the chain at some point. And so I got to let go of the tradition marker when it comes in to I'm responsible for my money and the stories I have. So yeah, tradition is just peer pressure from dead people. Remember that. It's the truth.
That's great advice, because sometimes I think you hear the voice of your parent or somebody when you're going to do something. You could just hear them saying, "What?"
Oh, wait, hold up. I'm going to say this on this live, on this recorded video, to my father, who passed away January 5th of this year. I'm still mad at you for telling me not to buy Google because he thought it was a piece of crap thing. My dad. And you know what? I say that, we say it in jest and it's funny. It's really not funny. It hurts sometimes because I'm like, oh my God, I'd be so rich. But I went to somebody who has no financial service background and asked for advice. So I got exactly what I should have gotten, crappy advice. I would have picked up the phone and actually called a financial service professional who worked with investments and those sorts of things. Probably would have got a very different answer at that time. Probably would have had a better. So here's the thing. If you're bad with money, don't go to other people who are bad with money and ask them about money. Stop it. If you got a bad marriage, don't go to other people with bad marriages and ask for marriage advice. Stop it. Go to people who this is what they do. There's plenty, whether here, other and else places. Laura is a shining example of people who are doing it well. And I think that we need to continue to have these dialogues prevalently. So I challenge all of you who do this, please go out and keep talking to everyday people about everyday money matters, because it really does make a difference. And I just thank you for all being here today. This has been great. I get to see brand new faces. So
Thank you.
wonderful. And Laura, how can everybody get in touch with you? I'll make certain we have it in the comments as well and on the recording.
The best way would be to email me at Laura, Laura, at ljlonie, LONIE.com.
Wonderful. Well, you are a special person and has become my friend. And I am just so grateful that you've been here today and to see all these wonderful faces and support and anything that we can do to be helping all of you through Females in Finance. Please know that we are here and excited to know you as well back. So we'll have a replay of this coming up very shortly. But in the meantime, please go out, make good choices with money. And if you think you can't, hire Laura, get a financial coach. They'll do you right. So thanks for your time, everyone. Take care of yourselves.
Thank you.
All right. Bye now.
Bye.